We segue into China now, where at least 5 people were killed after a cargo ship rammed into a bridge south of the country. Several other people were injured, but more because of the bridge split in half due to the accident. The Maritime Search and Rescue Center in Guangzhou describes how the incident happened. It said 2 vehicles fell into the water and 3 others landed on the vessel after it crashed into the Lingjingsha Bridge in the southern part of the city in the Pearl River Delta. Officials say reinforcement work on the bridge due to structural concerns have been repeatedly postponed in recent years. Rescue teams noted that 2 people have been pulled to safety after the collision as rescue operation is ongoing. Back here in Africa, we're in Libya, where members of an armed group affiliated with the Ministry of Interior in the capital Tripoli have agreed to leave the country. The militias, who have been controlling the Libyan capital for more than a decade, agreed to leave after a deal was reached to allow regular police forces take over the country. According to Libya's Interior Minister, Imad Trabelsi, it would only be emergency police, city officers and criminal investigators in place of the militia, and that the government will use them only in exceptional circumstances for specific missions. The deal comes after a series of deadly clashes in the city in recent months. Back in August, over 55 people were killed by armed groups and nearly 150 others injured. I want to bring in the VOA's Edward Uranian in Cairo. Edward, great to see you. What more do we know of these militia groups and their workings with the Libya government?
Well, Amarachi, I've been watching this since Gaddafi, former President Gaddafi, was overthrown. And, some of this is my interpretation. So, I'm reluctant to put too much interpretation into it. But most of the militias in Tripoli are Islamist-based militias. Of course, many of these people have families, and some of their family members are not Islamists. So I wouldn't go too far with that argument. But at the same time, I think what's being done here is they've tried to put half of the country under the Islamists and the other half, it's more than half. The east of the country is really more than half of the country. And the media, the Western media, portrays it in a certain way. Of course, the Western media portrays a lot of things in certain ways. Of course, they said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. They said he was buying uranium from Niger, and they said he was meeting with Al-Qaeda in Prague, none of which were true. So they say a lot of things, and I can go back a lot farther than that just to press the point. But it's not worth it. Basically, I think there's an inclination on the part of some Western countries, if that's not going too far, to keep the country divided. Now, what the logic behind that is, I would again have to be giving you my interpretation. But what's going on now, I think it's just window dressing. I don't think anything's happening here, and I don't think anything will happen. And if they were going to pull out, they should pull out right now, not in a month or a month and a half.
It sounds like, this group possibly has had ties with Muammar Gaddafi, because you were trying to draw that analogy there, even though you didn't complete it. But it does seem like they had some ties with Muammar Gaddafi, and they've had some hold on the Libyan government, split, albeit, but had some hold on the Libyan government and had some hold on the workings of government and, some aspects of governance in Libya itself. The question is really how much of control do they have on the government, on a representation of the government in Libya?
Well, I guess that's what depends on what you consider the government. The Western media is calling the government this group of people in Tripoli, whereas they don't really control much of anything. I don't think that's an interpretation. I think it's the truth. And they keep saying it's an internationally recognized government. Now, the prime minister in their internationally recognized government is no longer valid, so I don't know why he's internationally recognized, other than the fact that internationally some countries want to keep the situation the way it is. And I can give you the reasons why I think they're doing that, but again, that's interpretation. And I think one of the best indicators of all of that is what Libyan friends have told me. which is that several major Western intelligence agencies are present in Tripoli, working with the Islamists, and that the Islamists work with them. And I mean, I can, if we had 5 hours, I could draw you all those lines, but it's not worth it either. So I think the inclination is to keep Libya divided. One of the reasons, I think it's very simple. I think Libya had a $70 billion sovereign wealth fund, and I think it's in Europe somewhere. And I mean, I think I know where it is in Europe, but that's not important either. And I think they don't want to give it back. And I think so long as you keep Libya divided, and this is just one reason, I mean, the oil situation is another reason, but so long as you keep Libya divided and claim that the parties are warring against each other, then you have no legitimate government to give the money back to.
You mentioned a lot of things that are not important in this conversation, Edward. So what is important?
But do
the Libyan people even have a say? Do they even have a say in all of this, in how they want to be ruled, and I don't know, anything else? Do they have a say at all?
No, I don't think they do. Because most of the Libyans I know are complaining the prices are going up and that the situation is untenable, living conditions are untenable, and nothing's going to change because you've got these two so-called governments in place. And as long as they're feuding, nothing is going to happen. And they're going to be funding organizations that shouldn't be funded. They're not going to be funding things that should be funded. And they won't be getting their $70 billion back, their sovereign wealth fund back from Europe, which doesn't want to give it back, I think.
Yeah, and where will these forces be, while they're waiting to be called on by the government for special assignments on special occasions? Where will they be staying?
I think they'll be staying right where they are. And I think ultimately they probably will still be there in a month and a half. But that's only my conjecture. I couldn't prove that. We'll have to see.
Edward, finally, countries such as Egypt, where you are they looking at what's happened in Libya and, just monitoring the situation just in case, things don't go as planned and in case they might be affected by what's currently going on?
Well, I think Egypt is affected any way you look at it because Egypt had a lot of workers in Libya on both sides of the fence, in the east and in the west. And so long as the economic conditions there deteriorate, these Egyptian workers won't have jobs and they won't be able to send money back home. And I think that's ultimately one of the reasons behind the desire to keep instability, because they don't want to keep giving money to Egypt. I mean, that's going too far, perhaps. But, if you look over the years, Egyptians used to send a lot of money back from Iraq, from when Saddam Hussein was there. Egyptians used to send a lot of money back from places like Lebanon, I guess. And now these things don't happen anymore because the economies in these other places have been wrecked. And I don't think it was an accident. I think once again, that's my interpretation. I think somebody did it on purpose.
Edward, do stay safe with your interpretations. Thank you for attempting, a dive into this really difficult topic on the program today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Amarachi.
Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud says the country's executive and legislative branches have approved a crucial 10-year defense and economic cooperation agreement with Turkey. Following a meeting in Mogadishu, Somalia's cabinet approved the Defense and Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement. Shortly after the cabinet approval, the two houses of Somalia's parliament voted to endorse the pact in a 213-3 vote. Under the agreement, Turkey will build, train and equip the Somali Navy, according to Somalia's Prime Minister Hamza Adi Barre. Barre says the agreement will help to remove any fears of terrorism, piracy, illegal fishing, toxic dumping, and any external violations or threats to Somalia's sea coast. Somalia has Africa's longest coastline. Rebel activity in the Democratic Republic of Congo now. France is urging Rwanda to end its support for the popular M23 rebels. France's wishes were made known in a communique. It called on Rwanda to cease all support for the M23 and withdraw from Congolese territory. This is after France expressed its concern about the situation in the east, particularly around Goma and Sake. According to the communique, the attacks on the territorial integrity of the DRC are inadmissible, and the M23 must cease fighting immediately and withdraw from all areas it occupies. The statement from France came ahead of the U.S. warning about the situation. At the UN Security Council meeting in New York on Tuesday, the U.S. had warned Rwanda and the DRC that they might walk back from the brink of war. They must walk back from the brink of war. It follows another warning on Saturday when the U.S. condemned the escalation of violence attributed to the M23 rebels. The State Department called for the withdrawal of the Rwandan army and asked Kigali to withdraw its surface-to-air missile systems, which threaten the lives of civilians, UN force soldiers, and humanitarian workers. We're off on another short break. Still ahead on The World Today. Sweet tooth lovers disappointed as India bans the sale of cotton candy floss over cancer risk. Stay with us. Welcome back. The South African National Treasury is pumping 61.4 billion rand over the medium term to help alleviate the country's growing unemployment crisis. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana said it has also allocated 7.4 billion rand for the Presidential Employment Initiative to help get South Africans back to work and grow the economy. The allocation is set aside for the initiative for 2024 to 2025 by reprioritizing funding from the Unemployment Insurance Fund's Labour Activation Programme. Our South Africa correspondent Innocent Samosa reports.
The South African government will raise an estimated 5 billion rand in taxes from members who are accessing the once-off withdrawals in line with the two-pot retirement forms.
Progress has been made on the two-pot retirement system since I last addressed you during the medium-term budget policy system. Contribution to retirement funds will be split with 1/3 going into a savings component, 2/3 going into a retirement component. We must commend on Honorable Maswanga, has been vociferous in making sure that this bill passes. And we even fought on the timelines. It was difficult to persuade him because the industry was not ready.
Economists indicate that the budget speech surpassed expectations to some extent. Nevertheless, numerous risks persist.
We were on the optimistic end of the spectrum of forecasts for this budget, and the key fiscal metrics were even a little bit better than we expected. There are still many risks to both the revenue and the expenditure trajectories. But we think the most important is the overarching message of this budget, namely that government is still committed to fiscal consolidation. It's still pursuing a primary budget surplus so that we can ultimately stabilize our debt-GDP ratio. This budget very clearly signals that commitment to fiscal consolidation and very clearly signals fiscal discipline in pursuit of this debt stabilization.
The General Industry Workers Union of South Africa says the minister missed the opportunity to address important issues.
One of the projects that is being compromised is, of course, informal settlement upgrading system, which is meant upgrading project that is meant to basically ensure that informal settlements are upgraded to provide a decent housing and accommodation for all. We believe that once again, the ANC has chosen the rich over the poor. We believe that this budget is an admission by the ANC that it has no answer to the crisis facing the working class in the form of unemployment, rising levels of poverty, but also collapsing public services everywhere.
The National Treasury says it's still discussing options to replace the 350 grand and the balance between policy options to support higher employment. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
Here in Lagos State, the state government is seeking partnerships with other countries to achieve the SDG goals. The State Deputy Governor, Kadri Hamzat, says collective effort must be put in place to ensure no one is left behind under the Sustainable Goals Initiative. He was speaking during a meeting with members of high commissions and development partners in Ikoyi, where he said the Lagos State government welcomes collaborative ventures which will leave a lasting legacy for generations to come.
Based on initiatives,
how to foster partnership for the attainment of sustainable development goals in Lagos State is the reason for this gathering on the island. The State Deputy Governor Kadri Hamzat, some members of the State Executive Council, as well as the Consul General of the Kingdom of Netherlands, Italy, China and other partners are here to deliberate on the priorities for accelerating SDG progress in Lagos.
Where will Lagos be in achieving the SDGs by 2030? That is, at the end of 2030, where will Lagos be? Are we going to be able to achieve all the SDGs?
Lagos State Office of the SDGs is taking a lead in championing SDG implementation in healthcare delivery, having slow-paced, decent work and economic growth, zero hunger, and the special advisor in charge of the office, Dr. Oluwafini, highlights other areas of focus for the government.
We have defined 9 high-impact initiatives to achieve our mandate, and we are prepared to take action. 4 key priority areas. We're hoping to unlock 240 million naira in grants over the next 3 years.
Development partnership with other countries must not be ignored in order to achieve valuable results of the SDG goals.
We all have to help each other. When I say all, it's all countries on the planet, because the Sustainable Development Goals were developed in the framework of the United Nations. So it's not the old-fashioned way of development cooperation, of me assisting you, but there's a common problem, there are common challenges, and we have noted 17 of them. And these challenges have to be addressed by all of us.
I hope that I can help the Lagos universities to find a Chinese partner, especially some vocational schools.
The Deputy Governor is of the opinion that sustainability of Lagos must be the first priority before working towards achieving the 17 goals of the SDG.
One of the biggest challenges in developing world to achieve all these 17 nice goals is fiscal planning. So when Lagos says, I'm removing these buildings, it's not about ethnicity. Don't get it wrong. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with how do we sustain that environment? How? If people can just build anyhow, we can build any place, then it's a recipe for disaster. We won't survive.
Collective efforts from the people and the government will go a long way in attaining the sustaining development goals in Lagos State.
We're winding down now on the world today. A service dog is supposed to provide service, right? Yeah. So what happens when it becomes the attacker instead? That's what's been going on with U.S. President Joe Biden's dog, apparently. Secret Service records show the president's German Shepherd bit Secret Service agents on at least 24 occasions. One senior agent noted the bites meant the Secret Service changed tactics, advising agents to give lots of room. A warning came months before Commander was removed from the White House. Documents, however, do not record all biting incidents related to Commander. That's the name of the dog, as they only cover the Secret Service and not others that work in the White House or staff at Camp David in Maryland. Lots of biting going on there. And lovers of cotton candy in India may have to choose now between the sweet confectionery and their health. Some states think it can give you cancer. Last week, the southern state of Tamil Nadu implemented a ban after lab tests confirmed the presence of a cancer-causing substance, rhodamin B, in samples sent for testing. Earlier this month, the Union Territory of Puducherry banned the sweet treat, while other states have begun testing samples of it. Though a fixture at many amusement parks, officials say the candy is more sinister than it seems. Food and Safety Officer in Chennai City in Tamil Nadu says the contaminants in cotton candy could lead to cancer and affect all organs of the body. According to the health minister, using rhodamin B in the packaging, import, sale of food or serving food containing it at weddings or other public events would be punishable under the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006. And just before we go on the world today, breaking news we read to you earlier, lawyer and entrepreneur Galo emerged winner of the Edo State People's Democratic Party's primary election. He polled 577 votes to defeat 7 other contestants in the primary conducted at the tennis court of the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City, the Edo State capital. That's the world today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Obama.